everyone, welcome back to another week of Techy Tuesday. Today we're talking about one of the most important things you can learn when it comes to using AI tools like Claude, and that is how to actually write a good prompt. Because here's the thing, a lot of agents try Claude, they type something quick, get a generic response, and think, this isn't that useful. But the tool is not the problem, the prompt is the problem. Once you know how to give Claude the right information, the results are completely different. So today I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like side by side with real examples you can use. The first thing to understand is that Claude, and really any AI, responds to what you give it. If you give it vague, it gives you vague back. If you give it specific, you get something actually useful. Think about it this way. If you walked up to a new assistant and said, write me a bio, what would they do? They would stare at you because they have no idea who you are, who it is for, or what tone you want. That's exactly what happens when you send a one-line prompt to Claude. The good news is the fix is simple. You just need to give Claude a little bit more context, and I'm going to show you a formula that makes this really easy. Here's a formula I want you to remember. Every strong prompt has four things: a role, some context, a clear task, and a format. The role is where you tell Claude who it is. You are a real estate agent in San Antonio. That one line completely changes how it responds. The context is the background. What neighborhood, what type of client, what situation are we dealing with? The task is what you want it to do. Write a caption, draft a text, create a bio, be specific. And the format tells Claude how you want the output to look. Short and casual, under 150 words, bullet points, whatever you need. You do not have to write a paragraph for every prompt, but hitting those four things, even briefly, makes a huge difference. Let me show you. You can see over here on the left-hand side, I have a couple different prompt options labeled weak prompt or strong prompt. So here's what happens when I send a really vague prompt. Just write me a bio. Watch what comes back. So because I use my Claude for different purposes, it's trained to ask me questions for more clarification. Because I wrote such a weak prompt, it has to make up for the lack of information by asking me questions. That is really awesome, but it can then take more time for me to fill out all of these questions instead of giving it some more information in the beginning. Now yours may have asked you questions or it may have just given you a generic bio already. Now watch what happens when I start a fresh chat and use the formula. Same request, but this time I told Claude what role to play. I gave it the context about my market and my specialty. I told it the task, and I gave it a format with the word limit and tone. Now look at the difference. That is something you can actually use. It mentions stone oak, it sounds like a real person wrote it, and it fits the length that I asked for. This is what happens when you give Claude something to work with. Instead of me having to answer a bunch of questions, it knew exactly what I wanted right off the bat. Now again, because I do use this for other purposes other than real estate, it does ask me to specify who this bio was for. Let me show you another one really quickly. Listing captions. Here is the weak version. Write a caption for my listing. Now again, I could keep answering these questions from Claude and go back and forth, or I can give it all of the information it needs up front, and it can just generate an output. I told it the neighborhood, the price point, the key features, the platform it's for, and that I want a call to action. And there we go. It's ready to post. Instead of asking me questions over and over and going back and forth to get more information, I told it everything I needed to up front using those four key components. A couple of quick things to keep in mind as you start using this. You do not have to be perfect. Even adding one or two extra details to your prompt will get you to a better result than a one-liner. Start small and build the habit. Also, if Claude gives you something that is close but not quite right, you can just reply and say make it shorter or make it sound more casual, or add something about my open house to this weekend. You do not have to start over every time, just keep the conversation going. And the more you use it, the faster you will get at writing prompts that work right out of the gate. That's it for today. If you've been getting generic results from Claude, try the formula, role, context, task, and format. It really does change everything. This is the final video in our Claude series, so definitely check out the other four that we've been posting. We dive into skills, projects, how to set up your Claude, and more. Drop a comment below if there's a specific type of prompt you want us to cover in a future video. We love hearing what you're actually working on. See you next week.